The auction block. The room was dark, wide, and full of noise. Aliens from many species filled the seats, shouting numbers, laughing, some sipping drinks with glowing colors. They were here for one thing. The pain, auctions. In the middle of the room stood a small cage. Inside it, a girl sat with her knees pulled to her chest. She looked about 10 years old in human terms, though her silver blue skin and glowing eyes said she was not from Earth. Her thin arms were bruised. Her long black hair was tangled. She did not cry. She did not speak. She simply waited. Above her cage, a screen flashed. Lot 23, female. High pain tolerance. No scream reaction. Trained. Ideal for testing or combat. Training. A tall alien with orange skin and 6 arms banged a metal rod. Start at 5,000 units, he shouted. Who wants this quiet little thing? She doesn't even cry when you cut her. The crowd laughed. One buyer raised a hand. 6,000, another shouted. 7. A third leaned forward and asked, Can she feel fire? The auctioneer nodded. Yes, but she will not scream. We tried. Her nerves are working fine. Her species reacts differently. Perfect for those who want silence. As the price climbed, the girl closed her eyes. It didn't matter who bought her. They would all be the same. Pain was her future. Pain was all she knew. Then the doors at the back of the hall opened with a hiss. A man walked in. Tall. Plain clothes. Quiet steps. Human. Some in the crowd turned. Others ignored him. Humans were rare here, especially in this kind of place. He didn't shout. Didn't speak. He walked all the way down to the front of the room. The auctioneer frowned. You're late, human. You got business? The man looked at the girl, in the cage. His eyes were soft but sharp. He pulled out a small black card and held it up. I'll take her, he said. Too late, someone called. I already bid 11,000. The man didn't look at them. He turned to the auctioneer again. Full price, no bid. Now. The room went quiet for a second. Then the auctioneer laughed. You paying full market price? For that thing? He waved at the girl like she was trash. The man said nothing. He simply tapped the card again. After a long pause, the auctioneer nodded. Fine. Sold to the human. Enjoy your new toy. Don't come crying when she doesn't break. They opened the cage. The girl didn't move. Get up, one guard barked. She stood slowly, legs shaking. They shoved her forward. She walked to the human without looking up. He knelt down and looked into her eyes. He didn't touch her, just held out a small, soft blanket. Are you cold? He asked. She blinked. No one had ever asked that before. He draped the blanket over her shoulders, gently. My ship's outside, we'll leave now. As they walked out together, the room behind them broke into laughter again. What's he gonna do, tuck her in? He'll give her a bedtime story before he skins her. Humans are weird, but the man didn't react. He didn't care what they said. He just led her through the dark halls out into the landing bay. His ship was small and plain. No weapons on the outside, no guards, no chains. The girl followed in silence, still waiting for the trick. It always started with kindness, then turned to pain. Inside the ship, the lights were warm and soft, not bright, not cold. You can sit there, he said, pointing to a seat near the window. She sat, wrapping the blanket tighter around her. He brought her a warm drink. Something sweet. She sniffed it, then slowly drank. Her hands shook. Her stomach growled. He watched her carefully, not like an owner, not like a buyer, more like a father watching a scared child. You have a name? He asked. She shook her head. Do you want one? She stared at him. He smiled a little. We can think of one together. No rush. She didn't understand. This wasn't how humans were described. They were cruel, violent, selfish. That's what her handlers always said. So why did this one offer her warmth? After a while, she curled up in the chair, the blanket still around her. Her eyes began to close, her body no longer tense. He stood and dimmed the lights. Before leaving the room, he paused and said softly, "You're safe now." The door slid shut behind him. She didn't sleep. Not yet. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel afraid. Silence in the dark. The ship moved through space with a low hum. Soft lights lined the walls, not harsh like the cages she had known. The air was warm, gentle, and quiet. Too quiet. She sat alone in the small room, blanket around her shoulders, her knees pulled to her chest. Her large eyes stared at the floor. Every muscle in her body was tense. Her kind were trained to be still, to obey, to wait for pain, but it didn't come. She listened for footsteps, for the sound of metal tools, for the heavy breathing of someone about to hurt her. Instead, there was only the quiet hum of the engines and a small beeping sound from the control panels outside the door. Hours passed, or maybe longer. Time felt strange in a place with no cruelty. The door finally hissed open. She didn't move, didn't speak. Her fingers tightened on the blanket. The human walked in holding a tray. It had food, not the dry, tasteless blocks she was fed in the labs, but real food. Steam rose from a bowl, bread, fruit, even a small cup of sweet-smelling liquid. He placed the tray on a table beside her. No force, no orders. He didn't even touch her. "You hungry?" he asked. She didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the floor. He didn't push her, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he sat on the floor a few feet away from her. Not on the chair, but the floor, like someone who didn't want to tower over her. "I don't know what they told you," he said softly. "But I didn't buy you to hurt you. I couldn't leave you there." She finally lifted her eyes. Just a little. He was watching her, but not like the others. Not like someone waiting to break her. There was no hunger in his eyes, just something strange, something heavy. "You will," she said. Her voice was dry and soft. "They all do." He shook his head. "No, not me." "Why?" she asked. It was the first real word she had spoken to him. He looked at the floor for a moment, then back at her. "Because once I had a daughter. She was small like you, brave, gentle. She died in the war, and when I saw you in that cage, I saw her eyes." The girl blinked slowly. She didn't understand. His words made her chest feel tight. Why would a human see his own child in something like her? "You didn't even know me," she whispered. He smiled sadly. "I didn't have to. I knew enough." She turned her face away. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to think this wasn't another trick. But her body remembered too much. Her skin remembered electric shocks, cold floors, and metal tools that bit into her spine. "I don't know what to do," she said after a long silence. "I don't know how to be anything." "Then we'll figure it out together," he said. "You don't have to be anything but safe." She looked at the tray. Her stomach hurt from hunger, but she was still afraid to reach for it. "Can I ask something?" she said. "Of course. What do you want me to do for you?" He leaned closer, just enough so she could hear every word. "Nothing. Just be warm, eat if you want, sleep if you can. Tomorrow maybe we talk more, that's all." She stared at him like he had spoken another language. "You don't want me to clean the ship?" He chuckled. "No. This is your home too now. You're not here to serve me, you're here to be free." She swallowed hard. No one had ever said that to her, not once, not even her own kind. He stood up, gave her one last look, and said, "If you need anything, just knock." Then he left the room. When the door closed, the silence felt different. Not empty, but peaceful. She stared at the tray again. Slowly, she reached out and took a piece of fruit. It was soft, sweet, warm. She ate it in small bites, her hands shaking. Then she pulled the blanket tighter around herself and lay down. Her body didn't trust the bed. Not yet. So she slept on the floor, curled in a corner. But this time, for the first time, her sleep had no nightmares. She dreamed of a voice saying, "You're safe now." And for once she believed it might be true. The hunter ship's days passed. Or maybe weeks. The girl had no way to tell. But something inside her had begun to change. Slowly, like the first warm light after a long, frozen night. She still didn't speak much. Still jumped when a noise came too suddenly. Still flinched when the human reached for something near her. But she no longer curled into a ball at every sound. She no longer woke up screaming. He didn't force her to do anything. Didn't ask her to earn her place. He simply let her be. Each morning, he brought food. Each night, he told a short story, sometimes about a world called Earth, with oceans so wide they touched the sky. Sometimes about his old shipmates, and sometimes about his daughter. He never cried, but his voice always grew quiet when he spoke of her. One evening, while he worked on the control console, the girl sat near the window, watching the stars. They were like dust in the dark, too many to count, too far to touch. "Are they all different?" she asked softly. He looked up. "The stars?" She nodded. "Every single one," he said. "Some burn cold, some hot, some have life, some are alone forever, kind of like people." She thought about that for a long time, her voice barely a whisper. "Which kind am I?" He turned toward her and smiled gently. "The kind that still shines even after all the darkness." But peace in space was always borrowed time. 2 days later, alarms blinked on the ship's dashboard. Small, quiet beeps that the girl didn't understand, but the human's face changed when he saw them. He stood up fast. "Get to the back room now." She froze. Her body tensed. "Did I do something?" "No," he said firmly. "It's not you. Someone's coming." "Who?" Her voice cracked. He checked the radar. "Hunter ships, 2 of them, small class, fast." Her blood turned cold. Hunter ships were known across the galaxy. They didn't care about laws. They didn't follow treaties. They captured rare species, stole them from homes, or bought them from black markets. They were slavers with guns. She stared at him. "You're going to trade me to them?" "What?" He looked stunned. "That's why you're scared," she said. "They'll kill you if you don't." His jaw tightened. "I'm scared because they'll try to take you, and I won't let them." Her hands began to shake. She backed away. "They'll offer money or threaten you. They always do." He stepped closer, not to grab her, just to meet her eyes. "You're not for sale, not for trade, not ever." But she had seen it before. Kind hands that turned into fists. Gentle words that turned into chains. Her heart beat wildly as the ship shuddered. Red lights flickered overhead. Then, a sharp beep. A voice came through the comm. "Unidentified civilian vessel. You are in Outlaw Zone 71. Power down and prepare for inspection." The human pressed the button calmly. "Negative. Civilian transport? I have 1 passenger. A child, back off." A pause. Then laughter filled the channel. Deep, harsh alien voices. "You? With a child?" One voice said. "What kind of fool do you take us for?" "Stand down," he said again. "I won't warn you twice." "Good," another voice replied. "We like it when you don't." The signal cut. Seconds later, the radar blinked again. 2 red dots moving fast. Too fast. The girl screamed as the ship shook violently. A blast had struck. Their shields. The human ran to the controls, pressed a dozen buttons, and the engines roared louder. They shot forward, cutting across an asteroid belt. "You have weapons?" she cried. "Some," he said, "but they'll hit us again before we can charge them." "Then give me to them," she whispered. "Just tell them I'm yours to trade. Please." He turned to her, fire in his eyes now, not at her, but at the idea. Don't ever say that again. A second blast rocked the ship. Sparks flew. Alarms screamed. He pulled a lever and the ship flipped sharply, sending them into a spin. One hunter flew past, too fast to turn. The second stayed behind, chasing. He opened a panel under the seat and handed her a small device. Take this. It's a locator. Hide in the maintenance chamber at the back. They won't detect you there. What about you? She asked, terrified. I'm going to remind them why humans aren't hunted, he said coldly. She ran, heart pounding, crawled into the chamber, curled up tight, and closed the hatch. Darkness surrounded her. Again. But this time, it wasn't the cold dark of fear. It was the waiting dark. The brave dark. Outside, she heard the deep thrum of energy weapons charging. She heard metal creak, heard the man's voice over the comm, calm but firm. You picked the wrong ship. Then a boom. Louder than anything she had ever heard. Followed by silence. She didn't know how long she stayed hidden. Time slowed. The silence became endless. And then, the hatch opened. Light poured in. She blinked. He stood there, a little burned, a little bruised, but smiling. They're gone, he said. She couldn't speak. She just stared. You okay? He asked. She nodded slowly. You see now? He said gently. You're not alone anymore. And she believed him, not because of his words, but because of the fire he had walked through to keep them true. She tried to leave. The stars outside had returned to stillness, but something inside the girl did not. Even after the hunter ships were destroyed and silence filled the corridors again, a storm brewed deep in her chest. She stayed quiet, watched the human carefully, even slept with the blanket tight around her, but her mind raced. He had fought for her, risked everything, and won. But what did that mean? Her body was used to bruises. Her heart to betrayal. Nothing in her past had ever lasted except the pain. They were docking now. A quiet station on the edge of the neutral zones. Not lawless, but not safe either. He said it was for repairs and supplies. They'd only be there an hour. 2 at most. He turned to her at the ramp. Stay inside, I won't be long. She nodded, but as soon as the ramp closed and he disappeared down the corridor, her feet began to move. She didn't know why she did it. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was something inside her that screamed she didn't belong here. She stepped out of the ship and into the station. Just a small figure wrapped in a soft blanket, eyes wide and heart pounding. The station was dirty, crowded. Machines buzzed overhead. Aliens of all kinds moved past her without a glance. She walked fast, her bare feet cold on the floor. Her eyes searched every face, every door. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away. She found a corner behind a broken console and sat there hiding from the crowd. Her stomach twisted. He had called her safe, had called her daughter. But why? What if it was all a trick? What if later he changed like the others did? What if she grew too old, too loud, too broken? Would he stop smiling then? Would he send her back? A voice broke her thoughts. Rough, sharp. What are you doing there? She looked up. A tall alien stood over her. Scarred face. Dark eyes. He grinned when he saw her. You're far from home, little thing. She didn't answer. He knelt down. What are you? Escaped? Or sold? She stood slowly. Her legs shook. None of your business, she said, barely louder than a breath. His grin widened. Brave, I like that. He grabbed her wrist. You'll fetch a good price, I know a place. She screamed, bit him, kicked him. He howled and dropped her. She ran, through the halls, through crowds, past shops and docks. But her body was small, tired. Her feet were weak. She tripped behind a pile of crates near the waste chutes and curled up there, breathing hard, clutching the blanket. Tears came. She hated them. She had been taught not to cry. But they poured down her face. Why did she leave? Why did she think she could survive without him? She thought she had escaped pain, but the truth was, she didn't know how to live without it, and now she was lost again. There you are. The voice was soft, human, familiar. She looked up. He stood above her, breathing fast. His eyes scanned her, checking every bruise, every scratch. He didn't yell, didn't scold. He just knelt down, opened his arms, and held out the blanket she had dropped. "Come home," he said. Her lips trembled. "I'm sorry. I didn't know if you meant it." His voice cracked. "I meant every word." She threw herself into his arms. He held her close, the way no one ever had. She cried into his chest until she couldn't breathe. "I thought I had to run before you changed," she whispered. "Before you turned like they all did." He pulled back and looked into her eyes. "They tried to break you," he said. "But they failed. You still feel. You still care. That makes you stronger than all of them." He wrapped the blanket around her again, picked her up, carried her back toward the ship. No one stopped them. No one dared. When the door closed behind them, he didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. She sat in her old seat, hands wrapped around warm tea. This time the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful, real. And for the first time since the cage, since the auction, since the years before that, she felt it. Belonging. She didn't need chains to know where she belonged. She needed a voice that never raised in anger, a hand that never struck, a promise that stayed, and he had given her all three. The council's judgment. The stars outside shimmered, but inside the ship a storm was building, quiet and slow but certain. They had been on the move ever since the station, jumping from sector to sector, never staying long. Sometimes he would say it was for parts or food, but she began to understand the truth. They were hiding, not from pirates, not from hunters, from something worse, the ones who believed she still belonged in a cage. One day, as they crossed into human-neutral space, a signal caught them mid-jump. The ship's systems locked down. Red warning lights blinked without sound. "Galactic Patrol has flagged us," the man said quietly. She looked at him. Her hands clutched the edge of the chair. "Why?" He didn't answer right away. He turned on the external view. A large vessel hovered nearby, official colors, bright and polished, with the cruel shine of authority. He sighed. "Someone filed a property claim on you. They want you back." Her voice came out hollow. "They can do that?" He turned to her. "They can try." They were taken into custody, not with chains or guns, but with forms and silence. The patrol ship had soft-spoken officers in cold rooms, the kind of cold that wasn't about temperature, but power. They were brought before the Galactic Council 2 days later, a place of glass walls, glowing tables, and voices that never rose but always cut deep. She stood beside him, dressed in clean clothes he gave her. Her hair was brushed. The blanket was folded in her arms like armor. The lead arbiter, a creature with 4 eyes and no mouth, tapped its fingers on the table. "You are in violation of interspecies trade regulations," it said through a voice device. "You acquired unauthorized property in cross-secured zones." The human didn't flinch. "I didn't buy property. I saved a child." Murmurs rippled through the room. One of the judges, a tall, silver-scaled female, leaned forward. "Unit 47B is genetically modified, not born, not registered to any species. She is lab-owned, not citizen class. You cannot adopt what isn't sentient." The girl stiffened. She didn't understand all the words, but she understood the meaning. They were saying she wasn't real, not a person, just a thing. The man's voice grew hard. "She speaks, she dreams, she remembers pain, and still finds the courage to trust again. You want to call that not sentient?" Another judge raised a brow. "You have no legal paperwork, no guardianship claim, No cross-species parenting bond. What gives you the right? I do, the man said. Because while her creators cut her open, I covered her with a blanket. While others tried to break her, I taught her how to sleep. While you argue about ownership, I gave her a name. The girl's eyes widened. He'd never said that part out loud before. A name? One of the judges asked. What name? The human looked down at her. I called her Hope. Her throat tightened. Her fingers dug into the blanket. Her voice barely escaped. He did. He calls me that. The room quieted. The lead arbiter clicked its fingers. Unit 47B, do you wish to return to your legal owners? She stepped forward. Her legs shook. She stood in front of the glowing table and looked at all of them. I am not a unit. I am not a thing. I was scared. I was hurt. But he saw me. He didn't use me. He didn't sell me. He waited until I felt safe. And when I ran, he came back. Not to punish me. To carry me home. She took a breath. The kind that hurt in her chest. He is the only one who ever called me daughter. Even the room's silence seemed to bend around that word. One of the younger council members shifted uncomfortably. We cannot rewrite law based on emotion. Then maybe the law is wrong, the human interrupted. You spend years building rules to define life, but sometimes life shows up before the rules catch up. The council withdrew to debate. Glass doors closed. Time passed slowly, too slowly. She sat beside him, gripping his hand for the first time. What if they say no? Then we run again, he whispered. And again, until they stop chasing. But when the council returned, the lead arbiter spoke first. We cannot confirm her legal identity, nor her creators. Therefore, we cannot assign her as property. They paused. By galactic law, she is free. The girl didn't move, didn't blink. However, the arbiter added, we cannot confirm your parent claim either, not officially. The man stood up. I don't need your stamp. I already claimed her, with every step, every battle, every word. The girl looked up at him, and something inside her cracked open, not in pain, in peace. Because this time, the world had heard her. Speak, and this time, someone stood beside her and didn't walk away. The old pain returns. They left the council moon with silence between them. But it was not the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of weight, heavy and slow, like the space between heartbeats. After a long cry, she sat near the window, staring at the stars, and for the first time she didn't wonder what kind they were. She didn't wonder how far they were or what monsters hid in their light. Instead, she thought of the word he had given her. Hope. No longer a unit. Not an object. Not a lab number. Not 47B. She whispered the word sometimes when he wasn't looking. Not because she didn't believe it, but because she wanted to believe it more. And yet deep inside her, the darkness hadn't gone away. Somewhere in her bones, she still felt the cold floors, the electric hands, the sounds of cages opening, the screams she never made, and somewhere in the galaxy, there were still those who believed she belonged in that pain. The attack came without warning. They were passing through a quiet trade route, one he had used many times before. No patrols, no stations, just a few drifting cargo haulers and an old fuel depot. The ship jolted violently. Sirens screamed. Lights flashed red. Incoming, unmarked vessels, he shouted, diving to the controls. Hope froze. Her fingers dug into the chair. Something in her chest cracked like glass under pressure. How many? She asked. He checked the screen. 3. No signals. Pirates? Or worse. Her voice dropped. Slavers. The word hung in the air like poison. A deep, sharp voice came through the comms. You took what belonged to us. We're here to take her back. Her breath stopped. He didn't answer them. His hands danced over the controls, turning the ship sharply through a narrow asteroid field. They fired. Heavy blasts rocked the hull. Sparks burst from the ceiling. Hold on, he shouted. But the second blast was too strong. The engines sputtered. Lights went black. Their ship drifted. Hope screamed as the floor tilted. Her body slammed into the wall. Before she could move, gas hissed through the vents. Sleep gas. She tried to stand. Tried to call his name. But her eyelids fell. Darkness swallowed her. She woke in chains, cold metal cuffs. No blanket, no lights, no stars, just a cage. Again. She was on a slaver ship now. They hadn't even changed their methods. They didn't need to. They believed she had returned to her place. A face appeared, ugly and wide, with skin like dry leather and eyes like dull coins. "You thought you could run forever?" the slaver said. "We watched, waited. Now you're back where you belong." Hope said nothing. She looked at the cage bars, not in fear, but in calculation. "He'll come for me," she whispered. The slaver laughed. "That old human, he's probably dead." A sharp pain stabbed her chest, but she didn't let it show. "You think you're still special?" he sneered. "You're just a product. They called you 47B for a reason. You don't even have a species." She looked at him calmly. "No, I have a name now." He stepped closer. "You won't say it long. Once we remove those upgrades, once we cut out your defiance, you'll beg us to call you whatever we want." But he didn't know. She wasn't the same. He reached through the bars to grab her. She moved faster. Twisted. Bit his wrist hard enough to draw blood. He screamed, pulled back, cursed. "You'll pay for that." She smiled, slow and cold. "I've already paid." He didn't see the small device in her hand, the one her human had slipped into her coat lining. Hidden, quiet, a tracker, a signal, a beacon. He had known. Even in peace he had prepared. And somewhere out in the stars, a ship was burning bright and fast following that signal. He arrived like a storm, weapons blazing, no warnings, no mercy. The slaver ship shook from the outside. Screams echoed. Through the halls. Hope waited, crouched by the cage door. Calm now. And when it burst open, smoke behind him, he stood there, burned, bloody, breathing hard. "I told you," she said, standing tall. "He always comes." He reached for her. "You okay?" She nodded. "I remembered what you taught me. I wasn't a thing, not anymore." He held her tightly. And this time it wasn't just rescue. It was return. She wasn't a saved girl now. She was something new. She had fought back. She had waited with strength. She had endured. And not just to survive, but to live. And when the ship exploded behind them as they flew away, she didn't look back. Because some cages don't deserve even a goodbye. A daughter of Earth space was quiet again. Not the silence of fear or the silence of a cage, but a soft, breathing stillness. The kind that made you want to stay awake a little longer just to feel it. They floated above a calm green moon, far, from war zones, councils, and slaver routes. The ship had scars now, burns across the hull, cracked panels, patched wiring, but it was still flying, still home. Hope sat at the small table with a book in her hand. Not a digital screen, not a lab manual, a real book. The pages were old, the cover faded. It smelled like paper and memory. He had found it on a supply world, said it reminded him of Earth. She read slowly. Each word tasted new, like food she had never tried before. She asked questions. He answered them with patience. And when she didn't understand something, he didn't sigh. He explained again, softer. Sometimes, she forgot what fear felt like. But healing was never a straight line. It curved. It pulled you back before letting you move forward. One night she had a dream. She was back in the cage, back in the cold. But this time, the door opened, and she saw herself walking in. Not the small, broken girl, but the new one, the one with fire in her eyes. She touched the other girl's shoulder and said, "Get up." When she woke, her cheeks were wet. Not from fear, from pride. Weeks later, the message came. A nearby planet, one of the border worlds, was hosting a human delegation. Earth's leaders, diplomats, scientists. It was rare for humans to gather so far out, rare for them to be seen. He told her they'd be passing near, just close enough to watch. "Do you want to go?" he asked. She shrugged. "Will there be more like you?" He smiled. "Some, but none exactly like me." She tilted her head. "Then I'm not missing anything." But later that night, she asked again, "If we went, would they know who I am?" "Only if you tell them. And if I told them I was yours?" He looked up from his tools. "Then they'd believe it, because it's true." They arrived in silence. No grand entrance, no flags. Just a small ship docking in the shadow of tall towers and strange lights. Humans in uniform moved through glass halls. Alien leaders stood in quiet corners, whispering. Hope walked beside him, her chin raised, her steps light. She wore no chains, only a soft gray coat and her old blanket folded over her shoulders like a cape. A tall woman with a scanner blocked their path. "Identities?" He gave his name, then nodded toward Hope. "And this is my daughter." The woman's scanner blinked, red. "There's no match for her in the registry," she said. "She's new to it," he replied. The woman hesitated. "We need a file, something to verify." "You want verification?" Hope said. The woman blinked. "He crossed battle zones for me, burned slaver ships for me. He taught me my first words. He gave me food, warmth, and a name. I didn't come from his blood, but I came from his care, and that means more." Other heads turned. Other ears caught her words. A man in a dark human uniform stepped forward. "What name did he give you?" She stood straighter. "Hope." He looked at the human beside her. "And you accept her as your daughter?" "I already did," he said. "The day I gave her that name." The officer looked back at her. "Then, today it becomes official." He pulled a small device from his belt and scanned her wrist, a soft beep. Green light. "Welcome to Earth's family record, Hope. Citizen. Child. Daughter." The words didn't feel real at first. She stared at her arm. Nothing had changed on the outside, but inside, the last broken part of her finally mended. After the ceremony, they stepped outside. Stars filled the sky. The wind was cold, but she didn't shiver. He looked down at her. "You okay?" She nodded, then hesitated. "Can I ask something new?" "Anything." "Can I call you father now?" His eyes softened. He knelt down slowly. "Only if you want to." She stepped into his arms. "I want to." Years later, when people asked who she was, she never gave them the name the labs tried to tattoo into her mind. She told them this. "I was once sold in a cage, but he gave me a blanket. I was built for pain, but he gave me peace. They called me a thing, but he called me daughter, and that word saved my life." And every time she said it, someone, somewhere, dared to believe in kindness again. Because sometimes, the most powerful rescue isn't escape. It's being seen as something worth saving, and for her that meant everything.